Now, turning to our program, please welcome John Huggett, Vice President of Central Operations at the Boldt Company, to introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Again, my name is John Huggett. I serve as the Vice President of our Central Operations for the Boldt Company. What that entails is overall leadership for the markets of Milwaukee, Chicago, and Madison. So today, it's my pleasure over the last 19 years to work for the Boldt Company under Tom Boldt's leadership, who you'll hear from today. It's an employee-owned construction firm headquartered in Appleton with local offices here in Milwaukee and Waukesha. We're about a $1.5 billion annual revenue construction company serving in various markets nationally. So those markets include healthcare, power and energy, industrial, education, commercial, science and technology, and then also the public sector. Until recently, Boldt has been a family-owned business for 4 generations, in fact, with Tom being the 4th generation of family leadership. So today, it's my pleasure to introduce Tom, who will share you a little bit of the journey of the Boldt Company and how that has spanned for 4 generations, and having a chance to look back at the history, but then also looking forward to how innovation has really driven and propelled us into the future. So please help me in welcoming Tom Boldt.
Thank you, John, and thank you, fellow Rotarians. If I wasn't here today, I would be back at my own club having lunch at a very interesting sports bar. So one of the things that we have been doing is moving around as a club to various places. I don't know if they kick us out or we don't like their food or whatever the thing is, but it's great to be here among so many Rotarians and hearing a bit about some of your own personal stories. I'd also like to recognize that there are a number of contractors in the audience as members and maybe guests, and recognize them and their fine firms and their commitment to Rotary, as well as building the communities in which they work in. We are in a very dynamic industry, and it takes a lot of people to really accomplish so much to build communities and build careers. I don't have to tell you about the importance of Rotary as it relates to your connections to the organization, and I think you'll find as a new member that Rotary will give you many, many opportunities to serve in the community. The values of our company align very, very nicely with the values of Rotary, and I think also the 4-way test. And it's interesting for me to observe, first of all, my dad, who was a longtime Rotarian, and I also have to just mention that in our family, my 2 grandfathers were Rotarians. I had probably 6 or 7 other family members, but obviously my close connection with my dad allowed me to observe firsthand and how he used the 4-way test for business. And I think that this is one of the foundational areas which we have been based in, and looking at these different questions and trying to find out ways to resolve particular dilemmas. It's really important to seek the truth because unclear language can create problems. Expectations are not clearly understood. And I think we pride ourselves on being honest and reliable contractors. That was a line that my great-grandfather used back in 1889. And this whole idea of being a trusted partner in the community is very, very important. The company has found success by articulating our values and by finding and being true to our purpose. And that purpose is to build a better world for our employees, our customers, and our communities. The way we work, being purpose-driven and conducting ourselves in an ethical way, is really a differentiator. And as you look at building your careers over the long term, building your companies to last, this is where it really starts with these values and purpose. That's a cute picture of my dad up there, and two of our main values of honesty, fairness, hard work. Performance is going to come up here shortly. And the other thing about a passion for what you do, and we would say a love of construction. We really enjoy what we're doing, but this is all done through people, and it's important to understand where they are. So the big question, and we've been talking about this within the company for the last couple of years, and our current leader of the Boldt group, Dave Kiva, has said, why do we exist? Why are we here? Why are we even in business? And a number of these answers are we exist to achieve the extraordinary. And who is that for? For our employees, certainly. For our customers, obviously, because without customers, we wouldn't have a business. But also this idea of for our partners who we depend on to do much of the work in a construction site. And lastly, for the communities in which we serve. And this is a virtuous circle that I think is connected. And I'm sure that many of you in your businesses can see this interaction between these important aspects of business and life. I think another aspect too that is really important is, as John said, where we are today. We have over 3,000 employees, and that includes approximately 700 salaried employees. And in most of the markets where we work, we are a union contractor, so we employ union tradespeople. And that would be anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000, depending on the work and where we're doing that. We're nationally ranked as a contractor by our trade publication, Engineering News Record. I am the fourth generation to lead the company, and I'll get to the changes that have taken place here shortly as transitioning from 100% family-owned to a family and employee-owned company. And as far as revenue is concerned, we've been averaging about $1.5 billion in revenue every year, which comes from being involved in the markets in 18 different places. And we've been at this for a long period of time, and we're celebrating 135 years in business, which is quite an accomplishment when you think that half of the businesses don't survive after a year. And you can see how these things will change over the time frame. John also mentioned the key industries that we're involved in: healthcare, power and energy, education, industrial, commercial, science and technology, and work in the public sector. But I'd like to explain a little bit about our thinking and this progression to an employee-owned company. And several years ago, we made this transition. And an ESOP, as many of you know, is a qualified retirement plan that is governed by ERISA. So there are a number of rules and regulations that you need to comply with. But the ESOP structure that we put together allows the family to participate in the company, but also reward employees for good performance. And we believe that this model will maintain our values and our service-oriented and relationship-developed culture. Now, when we looked at ways in which we were trying to predict the future and what could happen, there were a number of different things that were looked at. So first of all, the question was, well, Tom, as the fourth generation, what do you think about your time with the company? And also, are your kids going to be interested? I have two kids. When we were asking these questions, one of them was in high school and the other one was in college. And it's pretty hard for a parent to say, well, of course, my daughter, who is a junior in high school, would love to run a construction company. Or my son, who was in college, say, oh, you bet, he's wanting to do that. And in talking with them and also just looking at their interest, it became pretty clear that either I'd have to work until I was 90 or 95, and that happens to be a tradition in our family. My dad came into the office when he was in his 90s, but I've told everybody there's no way I'm going to be working as long as my dad would be working. It did not seem like our kids were going to be involved with the company. So there are a couple of choices that we had. One of them was say, let's just close up shop. Let's sell the equipment, let's sell off the land. That would be easy, but that certainly wouldn't be in the best interest of the employees and certainly the customers that we've cultivated over the years. Another suggestion or another approach could have been, well, why don't we go with an ESOP? We want to know a little bit about that. And we rejected that at first because a very important company in our area had tried an ESOP and it had failed. And we didn't want that to happen. A third option was to sell to another company, and that would seem to be something that we thought would be a good idea. We pursued that with some mergers and acquisitions expertise. They developed a short list of companies, and we narrowed it down to a couple companies that we thought would be ones that could acquire us. And then we said, wait a minute, let's stop and think about this. We had sold a company maybe 10 or 15 years ago that was really not related to construction. And at that time, the leadership of that company said, there's an acquiring company. They are very similar to us. This would be a great merger of equals. And we think that this would be something that would be beneficial to everybody. And we said, that's a great idea, let's do that. Well, once the company was sold, the acquiring company brought their values, their approach to business, which was very, very different from the company that we had created. And we did not feel that that was the way that we wanted to have our company go. We felt there were a number of different things that we were doing in the marketplace that would be lost, and certainly the culture that had been cultivated over many, many years would go by the wayside when acquired by another company. So we circle back to the ESOP. Well, why do ESOPs fail? Well, one of the primary reasons is usually that the ownership wants to get their money out of the company right away. And what that means is that you will probably burden the company with a significant amount of debt. And that is usually bank debt. And if you're unable to make your bank payments, there are all kinds of things that can happen. And what happens with behaviors of your employees and the pressures that they're under to not only make principal, but also interest payments on that. So one of the failures of ESOPs is to load it up with debt. A second thing that is also a problem is usually the rainmakers for the company are the founders or have been with the company for many, many years. And when the company is sold, they're going to leave. Who is going to then take over that leadership, and will there be those future rainmakers to keep the company going? And then the last thing that has been a problem with ESOPs is usually the employees need to put some of their money into the deal. And in the case of the company up in our area, the 401k dollars were used to acquire the shares of the company, which also changes the dynamic and the pressures on the employees to maybe do some things that they wouldn't have done in the past, maybe take higher risks because they're looking for greater reward. And that can totally change the areas of the company. And so what we did was we felt, let's structure this in a way that there would be debt that the company could sustain. We had a good succession plan, so the rainmakers certainly were in place. And we also felt that it would not be fair for the employees having to kick in significant dollars of their own resources and perhaps their own retirement to pay for the shares. And we structured this in a way that that wouldn't happen. Preserving the culture of the company, empowering our employees to be involved in the future of the company and perpetuate the culture and the values that we felt were founded not only by my relatives, but also the employees that have impacted our company. So I'd like to talk a little about this generational change, and we've got some photographs up on the screen here today, but my great-grandfather, Martin Boldt, was the founder of the company, and he was a son of German immigrants. They came over in the Great Migration to the United States and Wisconsin in the 19th century. His father was a master carpenter. He also served in the military and was a farmer. And so they ended up in Brillion, Wisconsin on the farm. But Martin Boldt learned carpentry skills from his father and decided that the big city of Appleton would be a place where he could make a mark. And so moved a couple miles from Brillion to Appleton and set up shop as a carpenter, and where they specialized in wood products. He was a cabinet maker, doors, windows, sashes, anything related to wood. And at the end of his career, he was building houses, so there was a definite improvement there. When my grandfather, Oscar J. Boldt, took over the company after World War I, he continued the legacy of building homes, but also expanded into more specialty types of things, finishing flooring. He was a tinkerer, he was an inventor, and held 2 patents. And one of the things in the legacy of our company, and if there's a hero in this story, it has to be my grandfather, because unfortunate with timing, the Roaring '20s was followed by the Great Depression. And that was a time when there was not a lot of work. There was very, very difficult economic times. The amount of business that could be created in Appleton, Wisconsin was relatively small. And the company shrunk significantly at that time. However, as we know, building relationships with customers can provide some great value at times of great stress. And my grandfather had built a canning factory in Appleton for the Lanark Canning Company. And the leadership of that firm really liked the way in which my grandfather had done that work in Appleton, and asked him during the Depression whether he would consider building a plant for them in Lanark, Illinois, 170 miles away from Appleton, Wisconsin. Now, that would be considered a moonshot, I think, back in that time frame. But my grandfather said, yes, we'll do that, and they did it very well. And my dad had a fond memory of sitting on the front porch of their home in Appleton, waiting for my grandfather and the crew to come back after working a week in Lanark, Illinois. The other aspect as the United States was coming out of the Great Depression was the beginning of the war. And when the war started, our company was successful in getting a contract to build ammunition boxes for howitzer shells. And my grandfather figured out a way to really maximize the amount of lumber that he used, and they built a boxcar of ammunition boxes per week that were delivered to one of the munitions plants that was supplying the United States. You see my picture of my dad in the lower left-hand corner. After the war, he served as a B-24 navigator. He came back to Wisconsin and finished his degree at UW-Madison and started with the company in 1949. There wasn't much left of the company. And I'll also just share that my grandfather had some mental health issues at that particular time that really didn't allow him to continue with the building industry. And so my dad took over with this legacy of his grandfather and his father, and said, am I going to continue with the home building or am I going to expand? And my dad's vision was this home building was for past generations, we can be as successful with our values and our grit to go into more commercial, institutional, and industrial types of work. And if you know anything about the Fox Valley, it's had been the largest concentration of paper mills in the world. And so right at our doorstep was a great opportunity, but that didn't come easily. In fact, as I said, my dad started in 1949. It wasn't until the late 50s that we got our first opportunities to work in the paper industry. But after that, we built on those relationships and did paper mills throughout the United States. I should also mention that my dad had an opportunity to build a project and needed a piece of equipment, but the bankers would not give him a loan. And he tried every banker in town. And I think every company needs a friendly banker, so hopefully there are many bankers in this room here today. But he happened to meet a very famous banker in Wisconsin by the name of Gus Silke. And some of the characteristics of bankers is that they want to know the character, the capacity, and the collateral of those that they're going to make loans. Well, my dad had the capacity and the character in spades, but he sure didn't have the collateral. But Gus Silke was trusting and believed that my dad could deliver on his promises, that he could be successful. And this banking relationship really helped propel the company moving forward. Another really important part was a relationship with Frank Shattuck. Frank and his architectural firm was very important in the growth of the company because my dad started winning work as a competitive bidder in a lot of institutions, but working a lot more closely together. My dad would make suggestions to Frank and his team about ways in which they could build their projects at a lower cost, a higher quality, that led to a lot more collaboration, which has been a hallmark of our company for many, many years. We expanded geographically. We expanded internationally. We did work in the Middle East. We did work in Canada and Mexico. And probably our biggest expansion a number of years ago was to California. And this allowed us to exercise some of the things that we had been working on with our strategic planning to deploy in a marketplace is one of the toughest in the country. Any of you who have worked in California, it's highly regulated. There are labor issues, there are cost issues, there are earthquakes, and but it's a very difficult market to work in. And we were able to be successful in bringing concepts of lean manufacturing and integrated contracts that had really not been tried before in any part of the country, and have leveraged those to be very, very successful. I think the other aspect that we talk about has been the succession planning, and you see my picture up there, and Dave Kiewit, as I said, who is our current CEO. And we are developing other leaders in the Boldt Company construction end of that newly named Jeff Shipley and Tomac, who are chief operating officers and CEOs of the Boldt Company. These are some examples of some of the work that we have done throughout southeastern Wisconsin, but nationally. And this would be a way in which we have delivered these projects in many different ways for many different customers, and are very, very pleased about our way in which to develop these relationships for extended times and multiple contracts. I think another thing that I'd like to talk about is that during the pandemic, nothing coming from me, but one of our employees, that what do you do during the pandemic when there's a lot of demand for intensive care units, but the hospitals are shut down? And so we had been doing some modular work out in California, but at this unprecedented time in the pandemic, we turned to modular design because it allowed us to work faster and more efficiently. And this is a fascinating journey in which we are on, and our entire industry has embarked upon, and we're seeing more and more ways in which we can do work in the factory and change what we've done. But it gets back to this why we work has remained the same. Our purpose hasn't changed at all. And I think it's a testament to the organization that have been with us for decades, that we've been able to innovate and improve. So John mentioned we're celebrating 135 years this year, and one of the things that we've done is empower our employees, and we randomly have selected 135 employees from different offices and awarded them $500 that they can give to a nonprofit of their choice. And while it's a relatively small contribution, this has really energized our employees, and they feel very much a part of the company in this particular way, and also back to this idea of building communities to connect some of their passions with some financial support. And not only have we done this for 135 employees, we also encouraged our employees to take personal time or take company time off to engage with nonprofits, and that also has been a very successful way in which we have empowered our employees at a time when I think our communities are needing more volunteers to do good work, and we certainly know there's lots of work to be done. So finally, I'd like to leave you a few thoughts about sustainability and how to build for the future. And we're very early on in this ESOP journey. We've learned a lot by building our board. Our board diversification is an important initiative that has received strong support from the ESOP trustee and the valuation company. Those are two important elements in an ESOP. Expanding our board with a broader range of perspectives promises to bring fresh ideas and insights that can drive the company forward, we believe. And so recently, one of the new members that joined our board is a former chief financial officer of a large non-union company in southwestern United States. And we've also brought on two women, one who is involved in manufacturing and has had international experience, and another woman who is involved in the food processing industry and has had some construction experience, but more from the owner standpoint. And I think that this diverse expertise will lead to new questions for the board and reshape the way in which our board makes decisions and provides oversight for our strategic plan. And I think that this will be, as I said, a journey as we onboard new employees and shift to this employee-owned concept and welcome new board members who continue to care about our communities and welcome these new challenges that are coming. And again, I think that the importance of the four-way test in dealing with particular issues that come up. And just another side note, the four-way test is included in our employee manual, and this is the first probably introduction to the four-way test that many of these people have. And that's again another way in which we continue to live our values. And this idea about a purpose-driven business based on values. So that's 135 years in a short period of time. I'm anxious to see what the future will bring. There are no guarantees, as we all know, but I think it will be an exciting time. So I appreciate your attention today, and apparently we have some time for questions.
Thank you, Tom. It's really great to have a terrific Rotarian up there. And as you know, we're here to take some questions, and we'd like them to be short and concise and thoughtful. Thank you.
Congratulations on your journey to an ESOP, coming from the banking world, as you're talking.
Hey, all right, there's a friendly banker there. So.
I think it would be beneficial. I don't think a lot of people understand what an ESOP is, and just to give a little explanation of what it is so people understand what you're doing.
All right. So again, as a qualified retirement plan, employees, at least in our case, and again, this is going to be a little more complicated than it really has to be, but primarily the ESOP is employees own the company, and they are, in our case, are given shares for longevity, and the shares of the company are valued at the end of each year by a third-party valuation company. So just like you have a 401k account, and we do have 401k matching as part of an employee's retirement plan, they also have ESOP shares, and each year those are evaluated. And when we got into the discussion about ESOP, they said, now you want to make sure that those shares don't go down in value because everybody will be bummed out about that. Fortunately, we've been able to maintain and increase the value of the shares. If an employee decides to leave, if they're vested, just like in a 401k plan, the value of those shares will be determined by at the end of the year by the valuation company, and they will receive money that can be then put in a qualified retirement plan, or if they're of a certain age, they can take that as a distribution. So there's a little nuance with our plan. We also have what's known as an MSOP, and we have a number of our employees that have actually put some of their own money in to buy shares and have a greater position in the ESOP. But I think primarily it's employees owning shares in the company in which they work, and we think that that's a good motivation. And there are lots of associations and groups of ESOP companies sharing good practices, and I'm told that both political parties like it because they achieve all the objectives, so that there's lots of positive things will come out from Washington. So did I answer your question? Okay.
So, what percentage of your employees are in the ESOP?
Well, they would all qualify if they meet the hours and longevity. They would qualify too.
What's the longevity requirement?
I don't know what the vesting schedule is, but it probably starts at 3 years.
Right. Okay.
Thanks, Ryan. Tom, thanks for coming. So Boldt actually became a customer of my company when we had less than 7 full-time employees, and we're just in our 4th year in business. When Jake Garrow found us and found us online and reached out and instructed Heidi and Leslie to reach out, and tiny, we had no relationship with anyone within Boldt, and they took a chance on our small privately held business. And we did great work together for 4 years, and really had great admiration for everything Boldt did, and did work with Mosh and Baptist DeSoto community, all these different places. So when Heidi was looking to hire for her director of leasing position for healthcare, I tapped my good friend John Dolmas, who's actually here as my guest today, who works with you, which is kind of a cool full circle thing for me. So our company celebrated our 10-year anniversary on Sunday. We're now 4 times the size. Thank you. 4 times the size we were from when Jake had reached out all those years ago. We did this. We basically took 10 years and we did the thing where we said we don't have to define our core values or big, hairy, audacious goals, and we had kind of straightforward guiding principles. But we feel now more than ever, as we grow and scale and we can't be involved in every decision, we have to do that, and so we are. Just to make sure our team has autonomy to make decisions and they can guide us. When did those values get solidified, and how important was it?
Yeah. So the question is, when do the values get solidified?
Yes.
So for the first time that these values were clearly articulated, the honest and reliable came from my great-grandfather, so that would have been probably around 1900 because it was on some of the signage of the projects. But the values of honesty, fairness, hard work, performance, and love of construction, that actually came from an introduction to a brochure, a company brochure that I worked on when I was early with the company. But it was an introduction that was written by my dad. And I think that that really embodied the kinds and articulated the kinds of how we wanted to behave, how we wanted to perform in the market. And we have used that constantly. I think it's been a way in which if you're honest about it and you can demonstrate, just like the four-way test, that you're actually using these things as tools to improve your performance, this is a way in which is, I think, a way to retain your employees, but also attract the kind of employees that you want to have coming and working with your business. And as we all know, talent acquisition and retention is a huge part of any business. If you can create the culture of values and purpose, we believe that can be a winning combination. And don't be shy about articulating what your values and what you stand for. And sometimes it's difficult to stand by those because it's hard, business is hard, and sometimes you make some decisions that may not be in the best interest of the company at that time. So congratulations, and it's good to work with you. Yeah.
Thank you for being here today. With the change of any administration, there is, a change that happens in the business environment. Obviously, construction is as I'm reading, going to be impacted. Could be positively or negatively. I guess my question is, what do you see as upcoming, given that you are in a number of different verticals?
Yeah. That also has been a long-term strategy, because if we were only in the cabinet making business and there was a drop in the demand for cabinetry, we'd be in a world of hurt. By the way, we continue to have a carpentry shop, which I'm very proud of. Totally modern equipment and things. My great-grandfather would have loved to have seen that. So diversification in markets and region has been a long-term strategy of ours. And you can't pick and choose necessarily where the hot markets are going to be, but we feel that the markets that we're in, there's always a demand, even though the market drops. These markets continue to grow and expand, and we're very fortunate in this country to have such a dynamic economy. Healthcare is a need with our aging population in many different aspects, and we're in most of those sectors. Manufacturing, these companies want to grow and expand and improve. And even in an industry that was on its back for probably 25 years, the paper industry, those companies have been investing in their capital-intensive kinds of businesses. So I don't have a crystal ball, although we do have economists, and our industry has various areas that would say this is hot and this is not so hot in a particular area. Our feeling is, as we continue to develop the markets that we're in and find new opportunities, that we'll be able to adapt to whatever the administration or taxation policies or import tariffs, et cetera, will happen. That's the theory. It's worked for 135 years. We may have some different geographic expansions and some other opportunities, but we'll see what comes. But yeah, so.
I'm wondering who gets to vote the ESOP shares?
The trustee would vote the ESOP shares.
Not the individual owners.
No, it's not like you own stock in a company like 3M, and the way that it's works right now, the family still owns 30% of the shares, so the family is the majority shareholder. But the trustee will vote the trustee shares for the employees. Mm-hmm.
Hi. You started out, I think, using the word innovation at the very beginning of the talk. I'm curious, with all of our industries being revolutionized by data sciences, AI, I'm curious how that works in your industry and how you're taking advantage of it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we look back at history, and my dad was one of the early adopters of computerization, and we had a IBM mainframe and employed programmers to write programs because we couldn't find anything on the marketplace. But I think like every business now, technology is taking over with so many opportunities, and I think that the companies that can spend some time looking at how beneficial some of these newer data processing or communication tools are, they're going to be rewarded on that. I think another part of it too is you can be on the bleeding edge, which can be painful and expensive. And I think there should be some conservatism too, because just like with the electric vehicles, there's going to be a shakeout of these particular manufacturers, many of them that may not be around. And if you're going to be buying systems or expending capital dollars on a piece of equipment, that company may not be around to help you get through and be successful with that new technology. AI is here. We're using it in a number of different areas already. We're restricting our employees from using GTP because it's not as secure as it should be. We're actually using a Microsoft product now, but we're finding there are some applications for that. And you're going to, just like everything else, you're going to make some mistakes, but hopefully there'll be small mistakes. And if you make successful choices, you're going to be able to reap the rewards from that. But that's one of the fun things about a dynamic economy. We've got lots of smart minds that are looking at ways to solve problems. And the key is understanding what is the problem that you want to solve, not the noise around the problem. And that's, I think, a challenge that every business has. Find out what the root cause is and work on that rather than the noise around it.
I'll ask one more question if anybody else wants to come up. I've been reading more about companies that are thinking about building differently, planning for potential changes in the climate, regardless of what's causing them, but that climate around the country may be changing. How are you seeing that impact the construction work that you're doing?
Well, I think that depends on the client, right, and what their goals are. As it relates to energy consumption, there isn't a single client that we have that says, I don't care about my energy costs. They're all looking for these types of things. And I would have to say that our industry has adapted very nice. I'm very proud of how our industry has been able to use more sustainable products, reduce energy costs, improve the quality of buildings, improve the performance of buildings. As it relates to flexibility, that's a real challenge because, let's say a hospital, because of particular codes that you have, because of certain building standards, because of certain products that are on the marketplace and the cleanliness standards, some of those more adaptable types of movable walls, let's say, don't really apply. But there are a number of solutions that you can look at. And I guess I'd also say is that you have to look and see if the value proposition is there, because you can basically do just about anything that you want. Will you use it in the way that you think you're going to use it? Which, if any of you have built homes or whatever, you have a certain space that you think is, boy, this is going to be the greatest thing. And you find out you never use it at all. I think you have to understand how your building is going to function and then where you're going to put your resources toward to achieve the kinds of goals that you're looking for. Will it be sustainability? Will it be energy efficiency? Will it be flexibility? Will it be the way in which it looks? Those attributes. What is your value proposition? What you value? So many of these buildings that are being built right now, there's not a very high value proposition, and usually they're torn down after use in a few years and not easily readapted, which is unfortunate because that's a waste of resources. So.
Tom, thank you for sharing the slide about generational change. It was great to see how the company has evolved and responded over the course of generations, sometimes through the needs of the time and sometimes through the vision of the leader. I heard you refer to your strategic plan, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your strategic plan.
Sure.
And how the company uses that, because many people don't always
Right.
follow their strategic
Yeah.
plan.
Well, I'm happy to talk about that because that was one of the things that when I came in as a leader of the company, we had talked about various issues, et cetera, but we formalized a more strategic plan. I'm very proud that we've been at this for about 20 years. Have we solved everything? Absolutely not. But I look back at the issues that we were dealing with. Initially, it was a lot of tactics. And again, construction people are very tactically oriented. And so we're trying to get at what kind of tools we were having, et cetera, et cetera. I think as our leadership has matured and developed, we're going a little bit higher as it relates to areas that we want to focus on. And I mentioned this area, this talent challenge that everyone has, and we have really stepped up our game as it relates to developing and improving the skills of our employees. I think that's been a key part of our strategy for the last couple of years, and I'm expecting in 2025 that that's going to be a much higher area because the industry is accelerating. The demands that our customers are expecting from our employees are getting higher. If we don't have people that understand and are clearly conversant and doing the work in the ways in which we want it, we won't be successful. So our strategy of investing in our human capital is one example of our strategic plan, and we've got a number of other initiatives that we've been working on and continue to work on. It's slow going. It's rare that you'll have a quick hit type of a thing, but we continue to work on that, and it's been a hallmark of our company for the last over 20 years. And John and Jeff Eason have been integral parts of developing those strategies, which get the people that are closer to the problems rather than maybe some of the higher level leadership.
Last question.
Hi, Tom. It's so great to see such a long-term family-run firm. And I know that as part of your strategic plan, you also think, I would assume, a little bit about workforce development. There is a concern going forward as to which industries are going to be hit if there is a concern about immigration. I know that you talk about working with union workers primarily. What do you see as the biggest challenges for workforce development for companies like yours and the construction industry in general?
Well, our industry has had a chronic shortage of skilled labor, but if I would ask other company leaders in different industries, I would imagine that you'd have the same answer. I mean, we never have enough. We never have enough skilled people. We never have them placed in the right places at the right time. And so this is just a condition of business. So yes, we have a very strong initiative with workforce development. We're working very closely with a number of high schools, and we've got a very strong intern program, not only for high school kids in a pre-apprentice type role to perhaps direct them toward the trades, but we also have very strong relationships with a number of universities throughout the country. And last year we had approximately 60 college interns that worked on our construction sites throughout the country. Now, again, we're not going to by ourselves solve the workforce problems in any particular way, but if we continue to work and develop and expose people to our industry, which again, I think is a very exciting, important industry, and you can have a great career in that. If people have no contact with the industry, why would we ever expect them to even consider that? So at least exposing people and sharing with young people and people who might be transitioning from a different career to our industry is the way that we'll all be working on it. And just like all of you working to try to increase the skill level and the numbers of people that can propel your businesses for the future.
Thank you for sharing your time and your story and your insights with us. And thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.